Hello, my name is Chris Mims, and you are listening to Dope. I got another conversation today here with Nate Weber. He is a cinematographer, director, producer, and if you've seen any ad, any commercial, any social piece from Universal Studios Hollywood between the years of 2010 to 2021,
yeah,
he has probably either produced it, shot it, edited it, or directed it.
Except for the bad ones. I didn't do anything.
Except for the bad ones.
Yeah.
And anything out of Orlando, because they're whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But anything out of Universal Studios Hollywood, this man has been involved with. I worked with him for, I want to say several years on and off at Universal.
Yep.
But for sure, when I was an intern there, definitely a guiding star into why you can drop out of college and be successful.
That's the entire goal of what I've been doing here is just tell you drop out of college.
Yeah.
Don't go to college. Just wing it and figure it out as you go.
And I have taken that advice as best I can.
Good. I'm already succeeding in that goal then. At least nobody's getting student loans. We're stopping student loans by stopping going to college. That's how we solve that problem.
Thank you. I've been trying to convince all of my friends, even when I was in college, just drop out of college.
Just drop out. Let's just start.
Now I'm trying to convince all of them to quit their jobs.
we you know what? We don't have jobs either. Let's just go to college.
Yeah. Just go to college forever, be a professional student. But now you run your own company. You're no longer with Universal, and you own your own. How would you describe 8820?
Okay, so I started it during the pandemic in just kind of I was unemployed with furlough and wanted to make stuff still and didn't know what that looked like. And my wife and business partner I met at Universal. She's on the live entertainment side of the world. So she knows film and stuff like that. She's acted on film, but she's very much like the live entertainment performance side of thing and is a show director and producer stuff in her own right. But our roles are kind of like similar, same skill sets in many ways, but applied in very different realms. And we both been in theme parks for so long, her even longer than I had, that we kind of recognize theme parks are a weird amalgamation of media, live events, live experiences, and they fit into this gray area that they get to be their own thing. But there's so many other things that fit in that gray area that kind of are always unexplored. So our company is a live an experiential company, a media production company. We kind of fit in the gray area. We keep redefining ourselves as we find the opportunities that are coming to us. But I like that we can make live experiences in entertainment and media-based experiences in entertainment. And the real things I love doing are the things that are kind of blending those lines where you're like, oh, this wasn't quite the normal just live experience. It had a lot of media, it had a lot of technology and things mixed into it. And oh, this was a media-based thing, but it felt different and felt like you were kind of taking it outside of the realm of just we made a music video or we made a commercial or whatever like that. Mm-hmm. It takes it and makes it hopefully have a layer of reality where you feel like you can be a part of it different than just a piece of media you can consume.
Well, that's a good segue because I wanted to ask you, like I've been telling the crew here, is I've been to your place a couple times and I describe you as Iron Man a lot because you walk into your garage and you have a carpentry station, you have a station for welding, you 3D print, you reinvigorate Oldsmobiles, you race sometimes.
I can't pick one thing to do. That is the consistent thing in my life is you'll look at any year and you'll be like, he just that year he did that, I guess. That's what he did that year. Yeah, I like toys and I like making things. I always found making film and video content my goal wasn't I need to make video content. It was this is a cool way to make something. And at a young age, I was just the right age where digital was a thing. So you can go shoot a video on mini DV cameras at the time was the cutting edge thing.
Which is how I started as well.
Yeah, digitize it into a computer, use cheap editing software and create something all on your own. And I was the first generation that really had that tool be accessible. So for me, I started in video purely out of that was the first thing I was like, I can make something and have something I can actually show at the end of it that wasn't more than the sum of its parts. And that was one of the few ways you could do that was economical that came around at that time. And I'm just making anything. So 3D printing was fun to make. Making cars is fun to make. Making racing is I want to make stuff. So that's always my thing is making things. It doesn't matter what it is. If I get to be creative and use some technical knowledge that I feel like lets me, I don't know, I like using tech into creativity is always kind of the fun part.
So, I mean, you basically answered my question. I was going to ask why entertainment, why film and media, and then into entertainment. But that's pretty much why. It's just, you just like making stuff, and with whatever tools are available, and you just happen to, is that how it kind of happened? You just fell into Universal essentially, and
I 100% did.
Met your wife, who was also entertainment, and started the company.
100% fell into Universal. That was the perfect story of right time, right place. I was in college. My friends went and shot. There was a press event for something on City Walk, and they were like, "We're gonna go film this press event," and he had like his like blog, which were big at the time. And he's like, "I have a blog. We're gonna go film this thing and be on the red carpet." I was like, "All right, I'll go wrap cable for you guys." Like, I don't know what we're doing, and I just literally started talking with the publicist in City Walk at the time, and she was like, "Great, send me your content when it's done." And I was like, "When do you want it?" She's like, "Well, the sooner better, because I show stuff my bosses tomorrow." I'm like, "Great, I'll have it to you tomorrow." And I go and tell my friends, "I'll edit this so we can turn it around tomorrow and give it to them," and they'll like that. And they're like, "Okay, if you want to work overnight to edit this thing and put it together, you can do that." And I edit overnight and then send it to the publicist in the morning. And she's like, "Great, can you shoot this concert in City Walk next week?" And then from there, just kind of just kept going, but just saw the opportunity to be like, I can have a relationship with somebody at Universal. I don't know what power she had, but I was like, I'm a college student that has nothing to do all night. I'll just stay up all night editing this. If I can get some credibility for it, then great. And that's kind of was literally how I started Universal, steamrolled into freelancing for them over a few years until eventually they had a full-time position, and it was either going to replace me or I was going to take it. So I was like, I guess I work for Universal now.
And that happened while you were in college. Was there ever like a conscious decision? Did it ever feel very conscious of like, oh, I don't think I'm finishing school now? Or was it like, it just kind of happened?
I think that decision was made for me when I stopped going to classes. It was definitely wasn't conscious, but I always came to LA and went to Cal State Northridge, not to be like, I want to get a degree in film. It was, I want to make things. The only place in the world that I know that makes things is New York or LA. Like, I want to make entertainment of some sort. Those are the two places for it. So I want to go to school there and learn skills that I can apply to those worlds. And once I realized I was making money in those worlds, I was like, I'm getting an education to learn how to do this. I'm doing this job.
Yeah.
I probably could have learned a lot more things and probably would have made less stupid mistakes along the way, but I like making things more than I like anything. And I'm really good at learning on the job is actually, like, I'd say my real superpower is like, I decide I'm going to 3D print something. I'm going to learn how to 3D print the thing I want while fucking it up a million times. Can I curse on this? I probably can.
Oh, you can. Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm going to screw it up a bunch of times, and then eventually I'll be good at it and I'll make the thing I wanted to make. And that's I just how my brain works. I'd rather screw up the thing I want to be doing than learn completely unnecessary skills. Once I know how those skills apply, I will do everything in my power to master those skills. But until I know they apply, I have no interest.
Right. And I think that's why, like...
There's a dog here.
Yeah, we have a...
Parker,
we have a pup here.
No crying. Come here.
Can you describe, for the people just listening, what kind of dog we have here today?
A pit bull. She's about a year old, and she's crying because she's not getting enough attention, because big, scary pit bulls obviously just need attention and love.
Yeah, we have Parker here. Nate is a great lover of canines. How many have you actually owned, and how many have you fostered? Oh, what's the collective number of dogs whose lives you've been involved in at this point?
If you count like every dog I found on the street and like either brought back to its home or found a home for, it's in the 30s to 40s.
30s to 40s? So anytime you see a dog running along
probably
the street.
30s is probably the top end. But I've found plenty of dogs running on the street, saw their collar and brought them home, or saw they didn't have a collar, went and got their chip scanned, or found they didn't have a chip and found somebody that wanted to adopt them. So a lot. I've had probably, of my own that are registered to me, I've had 5 dogs now.
5? Does that include the fosters or no?
Just fosters, no. That's different. But 5 of my own dogs over the years, right? Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah.
How many would you say with the fosters? In the teens or not quite yet? Double digits?
I think I've only fostered like 5 dogs, I'd say.
Okay.
Just totally guesstimating. I'd have to spend more time thinking about it, but I'd say 5 other dogs.
So you're very, would you say that lies more in your empathetic center or your sympathetic center? Like, you just see dogs and it's just something about taking care of animals that...
It's taking care of animals. Like, they're the one animal we domesticated so you can take home. I would probably take other animals too if I didn't think it was cruel to them. They live in urban environments where they don't have the tools out in the wild to survive. Parker, no, good girl, stay. But it's sympathetic, and I always say, when I first moved to LA, I got a dog shortly after starting at Universal and moving to LA. Completely shouldn't have. I was in college still, didn't have the tools to do it, but I just got a dog because I love dogs, and my girlfriend technically got it at the time, but then it became my dog. And it gave me structure when I was a chaotic young 20-year-old that like would be irresponsible at all times, but I knew I had this animal I was responsible for to go home to. So it probably kept me able to have stable jobs and work my career up rather than blow up my life multiple times. So like young 20-year-olds often do, where they're like, I'm going to go be crazy and do stupid things. I was like, I can't do that. I've got to go home because my dog needs to be fed.
Yeah.
So it gave me structure. No, hey, Parker, okay. You were doing fine until we started the interview. Come here.
It's all good. This all adds texture anyway.
Right?
So
just be good.
It's like shoving treats into her mouth right now.
She'll be fine. For me, that was like the biggest thing is I love dogs, and they're completely helpless and so many people do bad things to them that I'm like, I just want to take care of them. But really, I like learned a lot in my early 20s of taking care of a dog gave me the structure to actually probably be a responsible adult that I probably would have taken me decades longer to figure out and mature into had I not had a dog that needed my attention.
Especially since you get so distracted.
Yeah,
it seems like
exactly.
You're always into something new.
A million other things. Yeah. Exactly. I'm not. You've known me long enough to know that I'll just decide. You know what? I'm going to edit 3 projects at once. I'm going to respond to this email, and you know what? Let's go to lunch first before I start any of those things.
Definitely. And I think that's one of the main reasons I gravitated towards you. I know you were like my immediate report, pretty much, outside of Brian, who
he was my intern.
Yeah,
he was my intern.
At one point in time, I was a wide-eyed. I mean, I still am pretty wide-eyed, but I was a wide-eyed intern at Universal, and I asked them for something in development, and they were like, "Well, we're gonna place you at the theme park." And I was like, "Okay, whatever you say, I'm getting paid."
Right.
We were editing together in a little closet
of an edit bay,
of an edit bay where the rest of the office was essentially cubicles. And I was just shocked how much. I think that first week I started was the opening of Fast and Furious Supercharged.
That's right.
And I was running media for like a lot of the.
You had to run the cards back upstairs because we're doing PR where the goal is fast turnaround. If we're not the first thing out, other content gets out there and could change the message of what we're launching a new ride. We have millions of dollars invested. So if we get the first best looking content out there, everybody will show our content versus random blogger that took their phone. So you were the person responsible to make sure that content got from cameras to the edit bay as fast as possible.
And that was definitely my trial by fire because I'd never done anything like that before. This was my first. No, it was technically my second internship, but the first one was Sony Electronics. I was all on a sound stage. It was very cushy.
Yeah.
This was the first one where it was like
field work.
You got to perform. Yeah. We kind of need you to perform. And that was before I edited anything. And I just kind of had they didn't really give me too much like preface to like what I'd be doing. They just kind of threw me in. And I think what I gravitated towards you more so to anyone else, and I think we're still friends and like continue to work together. Oh, I emphasize the think, but I don't know.
We're friends.
I emphasize the think there, but I think why we're still friends is we both have that same energy of like just figure it out, like go find the knowledge yourself, and like you will stumble along the way. That's kind of like the path, and like beating back that perfect. I think we still both have even perfectionist attitudes even still at the end of the day. But we kind of accept that like being a creative is like a journey, and you have to push yourself through like learning multiple things. And there's this jack of all trades kind of attitude that you have that I really appreciate as someone who has gotten so much advice against being that. Like, go specialize in something, go find work, go get your foothold, and then like you can like figure out how to be a writer, director, producer, or whatever.
Right. Spend a year being a grip before you decide, yeah, I'm a director now.
Yeah, and I'm like you. I don't have the patience sometimes to like focus on just one thing when we grew up with the internet. Like you can learn anything
exactly
at any time.
I think the internet generation is its own thing, and I think there's You and I are both that way. We've talked about it a lot over the years about exactly that, how we both didn't really. You had a very clear if you want to be a director, you had very clear I want to work in film type world, whereas I was like, I just like making stuff and these people are paying me to do that.
Yeah.
And I'll put your logo on it. Like, that's fine with me. I get to learn how to relax.
She's whining right now.
You're fine.
I think she is starting to understand that in this situation she gets treats.
Yeah.
If she whines.
Try and not encourage that.
Yeah. You can get pets though. Hey.
But yeah, so there's the old school mentality of you work your way up. You start as a PA, you work way up to being a grip, you work your way up to camera assistant, you work your way up to cinematographer if that's something in your wheelhouse, and then you get to direct maybe hopefully someday, which works, and it gives you tons of knowledge about how the industry works from a very vertical orientation.
Yeah.
I think we learned if you learn a job on every side of it, being a director then comes naturally because you're like, great, I can direct for the edit because I know how the editor really wants to receive the footage. You can have a different knowledge about directing from that. If you came from camera world, you'd be like, great, I know how to work my way in from a wide to a close up from a very creative standpoint, knowing how to be efficient in that because you've done it already. So I think I like doing a million jobs, not because I think that's probably the best way for everybody, but I think people like you and I, where you're creative and smart and quick and you learn quickly and you learn by doing, you can kind of quickly understand, great, I did it this one way wrong one time. You can kind of infer what the right way to do it is, that even if it's not the perfect right way yet, you can infer I screwed up this one job one time, next job I'll know how not to screw it up.
Yeah. It only takes me like one screw up to be like, okay.
You and I are both that way, where one good screw up is all it takes to learn, and then we're both quick enough and smart enough to learn that you can move forward and not screw up the whole project by making one major mistake and learn how to recover from our errors.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's really like really important from an industry standpoint. I've found, because for so long it's been like, yeah, find me the best wrists in the business to do this. And what I've tried to surround myself with, and even like the crew here, is like people who are like us, like people who can kind of do everything. Like at some point, because they enjoy doing kind of everything and like figuring things out, like they can get something out of every project. It's not like, oh man, I was doing this for like 10 years and I didn't get anything out of it because I really want to do this. You can get something out of any project, and at some point they will come up with something that is their own, you know, and they will know how to involve those same types of people, and everyone just kind of keeps learning from each other. And I think that's what's so interesting about like creative fields, rather than you're an accountant or something like that. It's like, yeah, this person's like the best at math, or I don't know.
And when you're creative, being best is such an ambiguous thing. Like, you're the best for that job that day, but that doesn't mean you're best for the same directing job tomorrow for a different client. You might be a terrible candidate for that. And that's not something you can always tell beforehand, which is the crappy part about being creative. But these are all creative fields. You're not doing accounting where you're like, the number's right or the number's right. You're like, cool, I shot it this way, I did it this way because creatively that's made sense to me. That could be the perfect choice, or it could be a completely wrong choice. But it doesn't mean there isn't a better choice always. There's not a perfect option. I don't think anybody ever makes the perfect shot selection. Nobody ever makes the perfect directing choice and casting choice. Like, the imperfections is part of this, and I think being a perfectionist in this field is always that weird conflict of like, you want to be better, but you kind of always know that's an unattainable mark, right? Which I think is what drives creatives always, is that sense of unattainability makes it more fun. Mm-hmm.
So that being said, do you think that, knowing what you know about the industry, do you think that there is a better way to go about it, that it is better to like master a craft, or it is better to know as much about your creative field as possible for someone who is just started, like a 15-year-old, and like, I think I want to make movies or media in general?
I think it's hard to generalize that, but I think there's values to both. I think in my experience, I love always having a new challenge, and mastering a craft gives you new challenges, but there's minute changes. You're mastering, and the increments are smaller. And I'm like, I think I'm 70% as good as anybody, in any field that I've worked in, but there's that 30% that has always been better than me because I'm not going to spend the decades being as good as them. So if you really want to be a cinematographer, don't waste your time trying to be a PA on sets just to be around it. Unless you're like, I'm going to be on a set with cinematographer I want to learn something from. Like if you can.
Oh, Roger Deakins, like I would, yeah.
But the amount of people I know that they're like, I work in the film industry and they're just PAing or they're being an office admin for the office side of studios, and I'm like, you were a fantastic like set designer, but you're now an office admin. And it's just like, but I'm working in film. Like, if you love that, great, keep doing it. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't be an office admin, but like, I think making sure what you're working towards is what you want is more important than mastering any one field. I didn't master any one field for a reason, because I didn't want to be a cinematographer. I didn't want to be a film director. I wanted to make stuff. And once I realized, okay, I've gotten really good at these things, I like making them, I can keep making money making them, which is great. Now I can use these skills and keep getting employed doing them. But I kind of left Universal realizing I learned everything I was ever going to learn from that place.
Yeah.
And kind of was like, if I want to keep learning new things, I need to do it someplace else, and I need to branch out. And luckily my wife and partner in our company has decades of knowledge of being in live entertainment, and I've jumped into live entertainment for the last 3 years, and I've gotten really good at it, and I have a lot of good reputation in it. But it's baffling to me to think that like 3 years ago I had no experience in that other than when I was doing live events in the theme park, which gave me skills and knowledge of it, but it was I never even thought about doing the live experience part of it. Several years ago I was like, I'm gonna always be the person worth the cameras at these live events. Like, now I'm doing events where I'm focused on everything but a camera, and I watch a camera crew go through. I'm like, that was my job. It's so weird that I have nothing to do with the camera team at all in this project, when for a decade I was entirely always the camera team.
Can you talk a little bit about, because like you said, you didn't necessarily know you were going to end up here, and you've always liked making stuff, and you've been on this 10-year plus journey with Universal, but now you're in this position where you own this company, and it is with your wife, who you met at Universal.
Right.
How has it been kind of combining those two worlds, or has it even felt like a change? Because you met your wife technically, and his wife is Allison.
Yes.
Who maybe we'll have on at some point.
She's be a better guest than me. I don't know why you asked me first.
Has it felt like there's been a change? You know, there's that old adage, which I don't know if even applies anymore, don't mix business with pleasure, but you guys have been working together for so long. Do you feel like there's been a change in your dynamic at all starting a company?
Yes.
With your wife?
I mean, there's always downsides of it. We're still working out the finances of our company and how neither of us are taking a paycheck, but we're trying to both fund a company. So we're like, well, that was my client, I should keep all that money. She's like, that was my client, I should keep all that money. And we're like, but also the company needs to make money. It shouldn't all be going to us. So that part's been tough, just the business side of doing it. But I think in actually doing things, we've had setbacks and stuff, but we have worked together from day one in some capacity or another. I met her literally when I hijacked her performers from working in the theme park and said, come take a photo with celebrities for me because I have a celebrity guest coming to the park today. And I just stole her performers, and she had to come tell me, you can't do that.
So one of your first interactions was her disciplining.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. 100%. Which, I mean, she did in the most, like, she's 4'10" and she came and told me no. And I'm like, I absolutely need to listen to her because she commanded me no. But at the same time, I knew I needed to get this photo. I was reasoning with her and trying to work through it. But we're both strong-headed people, so it does cause conflict. Like, we definitely fight all the time, but we fight all the time over everything. And what doesn't matter if you're mixing business or pleasure, if you don't have a relationship where you can fight with your partner and actually work towards a resolution and not just argue, and then go to your separate corners and pretend it never happened. You're never going to work well together. But if you can argue to the point where you both agree on the solution, that works just as fine in personal life as in business life. You just got to be willing to do that work.
Which, like, I feel like a lot of the stories you hear about people who do go on to make successful businesses or creative things, whether it's a game or a movie, well, sometimes less with a movie, but I feel like I've heard a lot of stories where it's a duo situation, you know, the Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak thing, where you have to have that creative partner that you can argue with in order to get to the brilliant solution. And sometimes they explode, but I think, you know, what you guys have, which those people don't have is a marriage to keep.
Yeah, you don't get to go home and bitch about your coworker. Because you're living with them. Yeah, I mean, I think all good creative comes from a little bit of conflict. Like, I don't think anybody has the best idea entirely on their own. Yeah. Like any director that, even if they're like an auteur that really has a strong harness of every step in the process, is still collaborating every step of the way with somebody else. And that somebody else is giving them pressure to do it a slightly different way than they wanted to, or saying the limitations of what they can do, and they're having to make compromises. And the goal isn't to compromise, it's to evolve and hopefully improve upon it. But I think, yeah, you want partners that you can work with. And if you can have somebody you can work with all day and all night and not have it be a problem, and they're like, you're home now, stop talking about work, it only adds benefit in the fact that we can work all the time and kind of be creative with each other until we're decide it's time to go to bed. Yeah.
Or watch a show or whatever that debrief, that decompresses, that you guys can share. So speaking of like those camera people in the park, we did a lot of Halloween Horror Nights is a big deal at Universal Studios. For those of you who've never heard of Universal Studios, Halloween Horror Nights is a big deal, and we've worked on a few Halloween Horror Nights together, and you've been doing them for, I'm assuming, as long as you were hired to
find say, one of my first, I did like that concert and a few other things at City Walk, and then I didn't work for Universal for months until they brought me back to work Horror Nights. So
can you describe for those who've never even really thought about it, what it's like shooting inside of Halloween Horror Nights?
Let's just start with, like, I think that's why I worked in film for so long, or video production so long, is like within video production there's so many different realms. You're doing full like feature films, you're doing TV shows, you're doing commercials, you're doing like little YouTube shorts like that, and then there's PR, which is a whole other side, and then there's news. And what we did effectively for Horror Nights was shoot commercials for it, which is pre-event, pre-everything. You're trying to recreate the audience experience in a different context. But when we're shooting on Horror Nights days, we're shooting in a maze, which if you've ever been to any sort of like Halloween maze, it's the same basic thing. People are jumping out, there's flashing lights, sound triggers going everywhere. But the main thing is you're walking through it backwards when you're operating the camera, shooting a guest going through it. And then from a camera perspective, you're just going backwards. There's loud noise behind you. And I learned my first year, I need to know the floor plan of these mazes like really well, or else you have somebody behind you guiding you, telling you go left here, go right here. And that's distracting, and it's loud. Their mazes are like 90 dB loud. So you can't hear anything. You're shining a light in your talent's eyes, so they're blinded, which at times is like a good like tool. And if you know where the scares are coming from, I can use that. But it's chaos, and you have curtains going over you, so you have like your light and your microphone that are getting tangled.
Sometimes you're walking through dismembered hands and limbs.
There's like splatter effects. You got to know where those are so they don't hit the lens. So like knowing the maze, we shoot it every year, and we'd have me shooting it, and then we'd have additional crews because we have to get so much content out that first day to make sure we got as much content as possible to get to the audience, because you need to get it out there as soon as the event opens. So we literally take our employee preview day, shoot tons, have as many crews as possible. And I'd say we learned over the years, and not to pat myself on the back, we learned over the years, basically it was like we'd have 4 crews, one would be me, and then 3 other crews that all be shooting effectively the same type of content. Half the footage ended up being my footage, because I know the mazes so well. I'm able to I can get twice as much footage as them, because I can Parker. Damn.
Parker is barking at something.
Parker. So I just learned that I could basically get away with far more. By knowing the mazes, I could shoot a lot more content that was usable, which if you're walking through a maze and you don't know where the scare is, you don't know how to like lean into it to make sure your angle's right. You don't know how to snap zoom in at the right moment. Yeah, like there's so much you can do to up a mediocre scare, and that doesn't really make the person you're as scared as you want make it look intense. Right. Than if you're just trying to hope they get a good intense reaction, because it's all dependent on talent then actually being good, the characters being really good at timing it, and the characters don't know when the camera's coming through too, because we're just shooting as the event's going. Yeah, so you're in with the guest.
Like, this is the one. This is the one the camera's going with.
And they just stop the line. We give a few seconds, and then we get in there, and none of the characters know we're coming. So they're like, what is this guy walking backwards with this big thing? So sometimes they're scaring the back of me. So oftentimes I'm walking through a room where I know they can't see me because I know where the height is, putting my hand out and like pointing behind me, hoping that they understand scare there, not here, and trying to do that. And oftentimes I'm jumping around a corner, getting the scare to hit me first before my guests can even see it. And then I'm waiting for them to come around the corner and they get scared again the second time. So it's a lot of... It's its own skill in that, and I loved filming it for years for that reason, because I'm like, this is video production still, but like the skills of video production do not apply in a maze. It has its own entire skill set that I honed over years and love doing. And I was like, nobody else can just jump into this and do it as well as I can. And I kind of, that was a personal pride point every year. It was like, I'm going to get like so many better shots than any other crew can get going through it. And it'd be like, cool, here's all the footage we get to every outlet then. But then they're like, oh, we're going to do a press kit where we have talent from ABC News come through and they're going to do something, but we need a bunch of B-roll to put into it. And it's all my shots of just people getting scared left and right and just like high intensity, but looks like PR footage, feels natural, doesn't feel staged, it feels very authentic and like, oh, they just went and got this. And you think that event's insane because look how many scares they got in that little package they just shot.
Yeah, no, for sure. There were a few times where I've done it as well. And admittedly, I went through one maze. I forget exactly which one it was. I don't know if I had gone through the mazes ahead of time this year that I had gone.
I have to say, there was definitely one year we just brought you back in and we threw you in as one of the other crews and said, good luck.
I had to be okay with like, look, my footage is not going to look as good as Nate's. Because your footage is always like fantastic. And will sometimes go with like fellow coworkers who you knew like would scream well and all that kind of stuff.
I definitely play with a loaded deck. Like it's not an even playing field when you're shooting those things with me because I know the mazes, I've walked them, I know the talent I'm working with, and I know I have so much prior knowledge. And you are just being sent in there as a cameraman. So that's
admittedly,
not the same.
I went in and I was going backwards in the maze. Everything was going okay. I was like, okay, this definitely is. I still hold your footage as a standard, right? I still try to hit it, but I know I'm usually going to fall a few steps short. But probably the worst experience I had shooting one of those was I was walking backwards and I kept walking backwards and I think I made a wrong left and I walked out one of the emergency back doors.
You're not the first one.
And I walked through, I was like, I'm outside. I'm outside of this maze right now. I'm not coming back.
You just left. You didn't even go back in. You're like, and we're done.
I didn't know if I could show you that footage because I was like, oh no, he's gonna see that I like walked straight out the maze.
I'm sure I saw it and I laughed
and not bring me back.
You're not the first one to do it, so I didn't hold it against you because the mazes have exit doors. They have fake exits for people to think they're getting lost. Like the whole point is to have that. And if you're walking backwards, you don't see that these curtains seem different. Oh, because it's a fake exit. Or this is the emergency exit.
And I straight up walked out and like, well, my talent is going away without me. I don't think I had a big light on mine.
Oh yeah.
So I just like cranked the ISO up and like tried to get what I could. But I was like, yeah, well, this is all supplementary footage to Nate's anyways. I think we'll be okay.
To say all we're looking for all of you guys was always just getting a few good scares so we had some variety because you get different talent. So we don't want, if I'm stuck with using the same talent for 3 mazes, you realize you got a lot of good stuff of those 3 people.
Yeah.
Having your diverse talent at least makes us have, great, we've got this other shot with somebody else in this other maze. We got something else. So
and you just can't be everywhere.
And it can't be everywhere, obviously. But the shooting in mazes is not, it's its own skill, which I think again it comes back to learning how to do one job really well. It doesn't behoove you if you want to be doing a lot of different things. And that was one job I got really good at and I love doing, but I'm like, I've now mastered this. And I kind of did get to the point where I was frustrated my final year doing it, being like, I've done all I can. Now I'm just worried about improving the operational flow of it. I'm a producer while shooting it also. So I am producing it, but then I'm dealing with my boss who's producing it too. He's got his own agenda. I'm like, no, I've got such a good rhythm and he takes all my cast goes another way. I'm like, if you just stayed here, I would have got so much more footage. Now I've got to take the shuttle up to the other mazes to catch up to you, get more footage to get footage of other talent. I can't get more shots of these 4 people. They've already screamed their heads off for me. You don't want more shots of them. So having that type of like behind the scenes, not creative problem solving became my entire goal that year. I was like, oh, I've done everything I could in this job. There's only so good it can be. I can work on improving a tiny bit, but now I'm operationally is where I'm trying to improve, and I don't want to be doing that my whole life.
Right.
I want to be creative.
Yeah. So speaking of that, going kind of diving into your tastes, you've had a long love affair with horror. You've got a tattoo.
Yes. It's Ghostface.
Of Ghostface.
On a beach, drinking a Mai Tai.
That, I think, sums up your aesthetic right there. Tiki vibes and horror. Where do you think your origins with this genre, love affair,
I don't know. I don't have a good story of like the first horror movie I saw that traumatized me, mostly because I've suppressed my entire youth.
I feel that.
But I don't know. I think I like anything that can make you have a emotional response at all. And having emotional response in a drama and stuff like that is great, but like that drains you in a weird way. Getting scared is fun. It energizes you. So I think anytime anything like, and I don't get scared easily in horror movies. So anytime I can get that little energy boost from it, it's fun. So that's where my love of horror, I think, is just simply just adrenaline junkie mindset, just translated to that nicely. And it's fun. And I worked at Universal, and that became a big area of classic iconic horror there is part of their history. So I got to always play with that. Plus every year I got to spend 2 months just producing commercials for Horror Nights, and then spend a month shooting
some of the
in
biggest
mazes.
IP horror IPs.
Getting to work with
year.
Blumhouse every year, working with different major IPs every year was always like, if you don't love that, you're not going to make good work. So like loving that is only going to make you better at your job. So it was like, great, this makes it even easier for me to enjoy doing my job.
So what was your love affair with horror before Universal, or was it cultivated at Universal?
It was, I think, very curated at Universal. I became far more of an auteur of horror there, but like I enjoyed it. I just didn't really have any discerning care about it. If I saw a good horror movie, I'd watch it. I love B horror. I loved all those type of things, and I still do. But like I became far more understanding of what made a good movie scary, because I learned how to like take the scariest moments out of movies. It's not always jump scares. It's drama and tension and stuff like that. It fits in them just as well. Character development, making you think, I don't want this character to die, is even better for the jump scare than just having a jump scare that you have no investment in the character that's getting scared in.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it curated over the years, but I always had a interest in it, but it gave me an opportunity to be like, cool, I'm getting paid to hone my own interest and my own passions.
Yeah, which is dope. I think, answer me this question, because I always struggle. Like horror is definitely a genre that I've gotten more into over the years as I've matured as just an audience member of film in general.
Right.
I feel like I did not grow up thinking like, oh, I love horror. It was always kind of like, I kind of know how horror goes. But I've come to appreciate it a lot more, especially I know some horror fans are a little off kilter about kind of this more heady space that horror is.
Like this,
the Ari Aster type
A24 type things and stuff like that. Yeah, okay.
Which I got on board with. Everybody else, fine.
Yeah.
I'm willing to live with that. But my question to you is, as someone who struggles to understand it, what makes good camp in horror versus what is like not it? Is there even is it always just a feeling, or is there a way that you can approach it? Because I know that camp affects everyone differently.
Yeah.
But what is it about like watching dude like get his arm cut off and shove a
chainsaw
into it that's different than like bad camp, you know? Is there anything?
Is there any one thing, I think, is really the question. I think there's a lot that goes into it. It's not any one thing. I think so much of camp is character driven stuff. Like a good camp is usually a combination of, I mean, using the Evil Dead chainsaw arm as an example. Like I don't think anybody else could have played Ash as well as him. Like he was the right actor to make that character ridiculous in a way that you're still like, but I'm 100% in. Like I'm not like, just because this is over the top and absurd, I don't like not tuning out. I'm like, yes, this is ridiculous. Go bigger. So his performance in that and the way it was shot was such a big part of that. But his performance, I think anybody else in that role, that movie would have bombed. I think he just was the right person at the right time for that role, and that made it so much better that they could have the creative freedom to lean into the camp. Because I know the first one wasn't intending to be campy, and they kind of were like, we're going to be gory, and it kind of went toward that direction, or at least that's my knowledge of it, is it didn't start that way, and the franchise leaned into the camp realizing we had this talent that can take this to a level that other actors aren't able to take it with any level of sincerity, because like it felt sincere every time he was over the top. Did not feel put on and fake. It felt like he's in pain, but at the same time I'm laughing at it. So that's part of it, but camp is complicated. I think nowadays the VFX camp and like doing like bad VFX on purpose is like a fantastic trope for low budget things to give you an easy in to just like.
I've seen that. Have you seen the trailer for what is it? It's bad CGI gator or something like that.
No, but I'm in.
There is a.
I'm in.
That's exactly what it is. It's a teen movie.
Yeah.
And they're all overaged, like, which I think
so
is
they're
like
intentionally too old. Yep.
Yeah,
so it's already there. Right casting.
And the movie is called, like Bad CGI Gator, Bad CGI Croc, or something like that. And the whole thing is like this overage cast is like getting killed off.
I mean, Sharknado franchise, same type of thing where it's just terrible CG at times. But that one, I think, did a delightful job of like not being self-aware of it. They kept taking themselves seriously, even when they knew it was a joke that they were terrible, which is fun about that. But then like taking that one where it's very self-aware of the fact that we're doing it badly on purpose is like another one that did that well is Velocipaster. Have you seen that? So good. It's a pastor that gets turned into a werewolf, but not a werewolf, a velociraptor werewolf. So he turns, instead of a werewolf, he turns into a velociraptor on a full moon or whatever it was. But it's terrible in the best way because you're like, he's a pastor. There's already, like, from the title you already can tell there's too much going on. So it was very self-aware that like we're just going to put too much into this that it's going to be ridiculous, and it was super campy and ridiculous and B movie horror, but delightful to watch, just knowing that they had full awareness of that. I think that's always a trick, is like you can't do camp on accident. Like camp on accident is always a little bit sad to watch.
Yeah.
Like you can watch something but then you're watching it because it's bad. Like it's actually like you hate watching it to some extent. The person who creating it does not appreciate what you're appreciating out of it. But people that know it and know that they're doing something with a little bit of an edge always like, and then just having a good sense of humor. Like if you don't have a good sense of humor, you can't make good camp. So if you don't have the humor and you're playing it too much, if there's not an audience for your humor, it's never going to work.
Okay, I see what you mean now. Like there has to be a bedrock of like, you have to bait the audience of wanting to like, how do I level this up? How do I like pique their curiosity and like, okay, if we're already going this far, or it's already like either like this overly gory or this kind of ridiculous at this point in the movie, how do I pique their curiosity more than like make it either feel like a cop out or I ran out of ideas or like that, you know, which I can understand. I think I've always had an issue with it, especially when I didn't know the word that defined what camp was. Of like, what happened? You know what I mean? What are they trying to do here?
It felt like a cop out instead of a conscious choice.
Right. Which like,
it does at times. I mean, it's a fine line. Like that you can occasionally be doing it as a cop out and have it be brilliant, but other times it's just bad.
Another question for you, as far as someone who owns a company built on live events, coming out of
media production. We still do media production.
And media production.
I don't know what we do. We do it all.
Doing it all, but I think that I mean, as our conversation has gone on, you and Allison seem to have a lot of specialty in live entertainment and interactive experiences and things like that. We're coming out of, you know, the insanity that was a quarantine. What do you see as like the kind of the future of this kind of live action or interactive space now that everyone's back outside? Is there a bubble here that's growing with concert culture and like just being outside, or are people still kind of precarious?
I think there's longevity to it, as long as, I mean, assuming we all don't have a massive recession and people change their interest because they can't afford to do these things. These things are often not. There's two forms of what I think is like the immersive experiential space. There's the brand-centric one, which is sometimes free because the whole goal is to get you to enjoy it, have a good brand association. So those things are often really well done and free, which makes them really cool because you're not having to pay a dime. And then there's a lot of ones that are trying to create something. The event is the product, so they can't give it away for free. And those often are really expensive by comparison. And there's a lot of room there to grow still. I think what I've loved so far in the years that I've really started pursuing this more and more is I've yet to do the same thing twice, even in client work where they're like, we're doing an event. I'm working with major agencies that are doing events for YouTube or events for LinkedIn or events for the Grammys, and they're wanting experiences, but they're always not wanting to have the same experience. So I think that's the beauty of it, is if in that realm, nobody wants to just be like, oh, if I want to just do the same thing, you could go and do the same thing a million times. You can go to your local bar and just get the same drink or whatever and not have it be an experience. But like, you want to go to a vampire bar, you're going to go to a vampire bar and you're going to meet vampires, but also every night's going to be slightly different too. So I think it's like, for me, I love that part of it. But then coming back to your original question is really more about, I don't think I don't think there's an end to this. I think there's a lot of room to expand, and I think the lines are blurring constantly with AR and VR becoming more popular. And I think I've dismissed those for years now because like it's clearly mid-ground tech. Like the tech wasn't there yet to make this an experience that really is like, this is better than everything else. It's just different.
I love Universal Studios. I've worked there. They've paid me, but there's some mid-ground level stuff in there.
Yeah, exactly. And technology changes so fast that a theme park is an exceptionally hard way to do that because it takes 5 years to develop a theme park ride. So any tech you're like, this is cutting edge tech we're using, in 5 years may not seem cutting edge anymore, depending on what it was. So theme parks are especially difficult for that, and I give them the piece of knowing that that's something hard to do, and you've got to kind of always be trying to iterate on your creative just to be able to pivot when you realize this new technology came out. Since we started making this ride, can we fit it into the ride because that supersedes our technology? But in event space, most events are being produced in a matter of months. So you can be using the latest, greatest tech in a way that's very applicable now that people haven't yet tried. So like the Google glasses are coming out soon, and those seem really cool tech. I don't know what that's going to look like yet, but I know you can do things with that you can't do with any other AR, VR goggles that are out today. Like there's the new Meta Quest 3, which is a good step up. Like I'd say it's probably the close competitor to what the Google lenses will be, or Google goggles. I don't remember what they're called.
I don't know.
But that tech is constantly changing, and I think that's finding ways to use tech not for the sake of tech is the hardest part in any of these things. I hate making VR for the sake of VR. I hate when anything fits in that box. But if you can fit tech into an experience where you're like, that tech just elevated it, that's awesome. Like and especially if you can do it invisibly where people don't even know what the tech is. So AR, VR is always be obvious what the tech is, but like there's new audio tech right now where you can make audio very focused to different areas, which seems trivial in most pursuits of what they've been doing with it, but like I'm trying to apply right now in a fun way where you're basically able to walk through an experience and you get different audio experiences depending where you're standing in the room, and the whole narrative is moving. So you can literally be in the room and have the narrative move past you. And the audio is literally cones of audio. It's a company called Holoplot that's doing it. And it literally, instead of, you normally have a speaker, it has a wide throw, and they all vary and there's different specs. And I'm not a huge audiophile other than knowing what the spec means effectively. My hearing also isn't great.
I feel that.
So I'm not like a biggest audiophile in the detail, but I found that tech super cool. It's just like, you can, right now you do like in theme parks, they have like the little like characters talking in the corner type thing. Like in Universal, they've got Moaning Myrtle in the bathrooms there.
Which is awesome.
And it's cool, and it sounds like she's kind of everywhere, and they acoustically did a really good job making her everywhere. But there's times where you're like, oh, I can tell where the point source speaker is. You can tell that she's coming from right here. Oh, there's the speaker. This tech creates such a narrow funnel of sound. You can have the speaker 100 feet away, channeling and hitting just you, and you can tell it's coming from that direction, but you can have 10 other speakers doing the same thing to that exact same spot. So that spot now has omnidirectional sound, giving you specifics, like whether it's like a voice speaking to you or a certain soundtrack, and move 10 feet that way, and it's totally different. And this tech can do that now, which is mind-boggling to me that that's even possible, because I don't understand the science behind it, but I'm like, there's cool ways to use that, and the audience is never going to understand how you did it.
No, probably not. They won't even think about it.
They won't even think about it, but you can create experiences now that, like, up until now, you had like, you can do the app experience where you put in the app and you can walk through like museums where you can have a guided tour, and the apps are smart now. They can tell where you are and give you audio to that. But you're having to get the app, you're having to plug in the headphones. So they had all this infrastructure the guest had to be a part of to do that. And it made the guest very aware of the technology you're using. Now you can effectively have that same experience completely invisible how it's being done, and the guest can just be like, oh, I'm entering this room, and hear a voice start talking, and they're like, great, go over to that painting over there and we'll talk more about it there. You just walk over there and the voice picks up and continues. Or it says walk, and you use projection to say walk along this line, and you just follow arrows, and the voice is constantly focused on you wherever you are in the room and able to follow you.
That's awesome.
So it's like that's where I think there's technology constantly changing and makes live experiences that much more interesting in how you can apply them.
So, and I think this is a question that hits multiple fields, but especially like, I think movies, gaming, live experiences like this, especially when you're talking about theme parks where you know you're getting like just a shit ton of live experiences.
Yep.
Do you think that it's a necessity, or do you think that sometimes it's a hindrance to like push these things technology first? Like, do you think it's like the goal is to just like
100% hindrance?
Right. That's how I feel. But you see all the time, it's like, we have this new big piece of it's going to blow your mind. And everyone, goes in thinking like, well, we'll see about that, instead of like, yo, this is the new, I don't know, just name an IP. This is the new Harry Potter experience. And then you get hit in the back of the head by a cone of sound.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa. Like, I didn't know like Myrtle was going to be in the bathroom when I went into Hogsmeade the first time. And I'm washing my hands and she's like
giggling at you. Yeah. You're like, hey, I'm peeing here. Don't giggle at me.
But you see it just so many times. And that's why, like, yeah, I think while it is good to like focus on the technology elevating the experience, I always like cringe or feel bad when they're like, in the commercial it's telling you you're gonna feel this way, and it's like, oh man.
I 100% think my goal always with technology and doing live experiences and with anything, I like the technology to feel invisible. So sometimes you can't hide it and there's limitations to that, but the more you can get the audience to not know the tech and not think about the tech, that's when you're winning. But if you're saying, look at this new virtual reality experience, well, now virtual reality is the experience. Doesn't matter what you put in it, what they're experiencing, they're going to say, oh, it's a VR thing. Versus a live experience, I went to this cool show and I don't even know how to describe the fact that there was a character following around talking to me the whole time because it was cone of audio tracking you, and somebody can real time in theory follow a person and give them just feel like you have a demon on your shoulder just whispering mean things to you the whole time. Is something that you can in theory do now with this tech, and nobody knows that it's tech doing it. They just know that I felt like I was being haunted the whole damn time I walked through this maze.
So I'm going to look in the camera and say, to the gaming world, please don't push your technology first.
Stop it.
Let us play the game.
Yeah.
We will experience the technology and be blown away by what you're able to accomplish.
If you can make the technology so good that you don't think about technology, then you've already succeeded. You don't need to say the technology is so good. You can get early adopters. The only time you want to talk about technology is when you want the early adopters to buy it.
Yeah.
But after that audience has already done it, nobody else cares. Nobody else cares what tech you're using. I think actually what I love about tech directing is like, people come to me to say, solve our problem with tech. And it's not a make it very tech centric. It's a literally, we know technology is the only way to solve these problems. You need technology. Technology is an important part of our life, but finding a way to solve it that just focus on solving the problem rather than saying, and then you put VR goggles on and then you get to see it all in that. You're like, what? Why am I here in a real life experience if I'm going to be wearing goggles?
Exactly. Well, I love that perspective because I just feel like we're still in a shock period, I feel like, since, there's an app for that period of our lives where everyone was just getting used to, there's a cloud and there's apps and like everything's kind of online now. And we need to like, as far as like getting us to fully kind of embrace and comprehend technology, as far as like, we're all breezing past the terms and service right now. But as far as like truly understanding, like this is a part of our lives and like this is how we interact with it, like integrating in that way where it's like this is a part of your life, this is a part of your experience, and now you're judging it based more on that than the shock value of it's even there, which is what I feel like a lot of people are just like, it's the shock value of it. You're putting on VR goggles and getting on a roller coaster, like the newest, greatest, most powerful machine. Is like, no. This is how it affects your life.
Right. This is how you use it. This is This is how it can improve your life or make this experience feel elevated beyond what you can do. Because right now, I think, like you said, we're all coming out of like apps and stuff like that being a big thing, but we're also coming out of being siloed and stuck at home. Like having an experience around people, I think, is that much more valuable now than it was a few years ago. Like I think, for me at least, and I'm probably speaking out of turn, I still love video games, but I haven't played a video game since the pandemic in any significant way. I've played them. I've picked them up and played it, but like I play with friends now. And if a friend wants to play a video game with me, I will gladly play with them. Right. But I haven't played a video game by myself other than when I'm like just laying in bed and be like, I need 30 minutes to kill. I just want to turn on something so I can feel some sense of accomplishment. And then
not looking for a 24-hour experience.
Yeah, I'm looking to just fill like the 15 minutes before I'm like, my brain is ready to fall asleep now. Let's go to bed. Or I woke up in the morning, I don't want to get out of bed yet. Let's just play a video game until I wake myself up through adrenaline enough to decide I'm going to go take a shower. But I think that's the key thing is like using these things to make sure they're always people experiences, because we're all social by nature. Even people that think I don't need a lot of friends I always see wanting to hang out with people all the time and be like, oh, hey, yeah, did you like that? Do you like the same thing I like? We all want to share it. Yeah. You want to be like, do you like the same show I like? Do you want like the same game I like? So always focus on how the people can share that experience is going to make your product better no matter what it is. Like create something that people want to talk about.
I have two more questions for you. The first one being, is there a white whale yet for 8820? Like, is there a thing that you and Allison have been dreaming about doing that, like, man, once we either get the cloud or the budget or something like that, we would just like
there's a few
love to do?
There's a
if
few.
You can say it out loud.
There's a few. I want to create a permanent live space that is not just one thing. Like if you've been to Area 15 in Vegas,
yeah,
I when they announced that, I came up with my like just the concept of what their spiel was, what it was, and that I loved that idea so much. And I, before I even knew what they were doing, came up with an entire version of my own version of that was
like that's the place with all the rooms, right? There's like all the
it's got Omega Mart by Meow Wolf, which is fantastic. It's got a bunch of other little smaller activations, but Omega Mart's a big thing. And Universal just announced they're doing a year-round Horror Nights thing that's going to be there as well. So it's just a bunch of real life experience. There's like a whole arcade and video game centric thing. There's like a club that's all LED walls and has all kinds of projection and crazy things. Like it's a very tech centric place. It's got this big beautiful tree in the middle of it. It's a big fake tree that's LED lights and glows and changes colors, and it's all really cool. But I like the concept of that resonated with me so quickly. I was like, oh, I love this. But I immediately had completely different visions of the entire thing from beginning to end. So like, other than the pure notion of what like that is like this space where it has a bunch of little experience inside it, everything else different. And I want to get to the point where you can be like, cool, let's buy a warehouse and just start building this.
Yeah.
Like that is my white whale. Like have the money to just be like, fuck you money. I'm just like, we're going to build this thing. I truly think it will be financially successful, but those type of things are so hard to judge because to make it to that scale requires such a large audience. And right now, so much of these immersive and experiential things are targeted to narrow audiences that then will talk about it to a larger audience, but they're not targeted to be like, it's not theme park scale. They're all designed to be smaller than theme park's purpose. But like to do a big space like that and have Area 15 be successful, they're getting tens of thousands of people there every day in theory to make it successful. That's hard to do. So you need to be like, cool, I need to make sure my product is not only really, really cool and a unique thing that I think is really great, but also needs to make sure it speaks to people that maybe aren't used to going to these type of things. Because I think the audience is growing every year, and I think my hope is by the time I have the money to do that, the audience is massive, and I'm not worried about like we're trying to get 10,000 people to do this. I don't know if there's 10,000 people that give a shit. But if we can get to that point where that is one of them. We did Corn Scream as our first project as a company, and I loved the kind of abstract of that not fitting into a genre. It was effectively a horror film, but it was also a live experience done over Zoom, and it had full film sequences with horror and like our cast all acting and like doing a full on like Ghostface chasing. It was based on the Scream franchise, but we made it our own thing and had to have a live virtual component where there was an audience able to engage and talk with the cast and do this level of kind of choose your own adventure with an audience. And I loved that communal experience it created. I knew we wanted to bring an audience together for that and have them all have one shared experience like you do in a live movie or a movie or in a live theatrical experience where all audience is all following one thing and really not getting to participate that much, but all sharing the emotion of it.
Right.
And in this, I was like, you get that same shared emotion feeling, but there is a little bit more participation. And I think there's opportunities in that world where take movies, take live theater experiences, and just to give a little bit more audience participation, make it immersive, bring the audience into the show, give them opportunities to choose things. And I think letting the show fit around the audience is going to be far better than trying to force the audience to say, fit into the box of tradition, what we've already done.
Right.
And that's the fun of it. So I want to find ways to push those boundaries. So it's not a here's the thing and it's a very narrow thing. It's kind of doors I see opening that I want to be able to push open. It's my white whale. Like that door I see open. Area 15's done a really cool thing that I'm really excited by. But before they even finished their version of it, I already had ideas of what it would be that I'm like, they didn't touch this. I think there's more here that they haven't touched yet. And I'm really excited to hopefully be the person who can say, let's open this door more. I don't want to give it all away, but I like there's areas to play there that haven't been explored and I think will resonate really, really well.
Have you been to Area 15 yet?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
One more. This is the last one. So that's 8820's White Whale. That's like your thing. If you could pitch a theme park though. Theme park, so you instead of like, okay, we're going to get 10,000 people who are maybe interested. We're looking at a place where like, okay, this is an established...
It's going to have 30,000 guests every day regardless.
Right. What does that look like? Well, and it doesn't have to be 8820 specific. Just like in general, I just want to hear your idea for an ideal.
I haven't actually thought about doing my own theme park. Ironically, 8820 is working on theme park stuff still because we've got a lot of background in it. So we've got partnerships with theme parks that are new and upcoming and existing theme parks, new attractions and stuff.
Yeah, because even my time at Universal, which is much shorter than yours, I was like, I could build a Pokemon theme park. Like I could do it.
I think we talked about that. Didn't we?
Probably.
I think we did. That sounds familiar. Yeah. God, I don't know. Like I said, with the holoplot audio tech is one that I'm right this minute super obsessed with, obviously. And then there's all kinds of ways to use technology. There's a show called Cages in LA that closed. That was my favorite theatrical experience, like live theatrical experience ever, but it wasn't just purely live. Again, it used a lot of media, it used a lot of technology, but as a guest watching it, it felt all like what's happening in front of you, but it took what you could do on a stage and made it elevated because they were using media to make it more than what you could do to people standing on stage. It was projection and a mix of Pepper's Ghost effect, which is an old school effect they used in rides for decades, but there's constantly new small ways to apply that differently that I'm really excited by and always think if you could do it in a way that people don't know how you did it is always better. And that's the kind of trick there. And I think that's still true to any old Pepper's Ghost. People that know it know how they always work. But
can you explain exactly?
Pepper's Ghost is an effect where you basically are using a sheet of glass, and usually glass could be other materials, but some sort of subsurface, and you're either projecting or reflecting an image off of it. So the traditional way to do it is you put a sheet of glass, put black behind it, and then the audience is here, and you have the sheet of glass here, and over here, depending on how the angle the glass is going, you actually have a character there or an object there that you want to see floating. So like think of the Haunted Mansion. They've got all the ghosts going around in like dancing through the scene down below you. They're actually underneath you, behind you. Shh. I only know that because it's on the internet already. No, it's no secrets, but it's a secret. But it's a Pepper's Ghost effect, and we used it at Universal. And I want to explain how in one of the Fast and Furious rides as a gag too. But you can use it with projection and use video. You can use it with practical things, and it's just basically hiding it so it creates a kind of a fake ghosty effect if done in a room that has ambient light, and done in a room that's very dark, you can make it look almost like solid, but then you can make it disappear. So it seems like it's right in front of you, but then change the lighting over here, that's actually another object over here, it disappears, but none of the other lighting in the room changes. So it seems like the object disappeared rather than I turned off a light around the corner here and you saw a reflection of the object instead of the actual object on the table. So that's what a Pepper's Ghost is. And that technology is constantly having small increments, and that's super fun. I love roller coasters, but I don't know what I'd do to make roller coaster better. I know there's like the Tron roller coaster in Orlando is supposed to be really good, and I haven't ridden that yet.
I haven't been on that. I've seen one in, I think it's Japan. There's a Tron roller coaster.
Yeah.
That looks
maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Incredible.
Yeah, that's probably the one I'm thinking of. And there's the Avatar ride in Orlando for Disney.
Which is also pretty insane.
Which is honestly, I think is a great ride all around, but my first time going on it, I went into it entirely oblivious on purpose because I like experiencing things. I don't like people that want to watch, especially the person who was making stuff to go on YouTube to show you what the rides were all the time. I wanted to only see that type of content after I've done it, because experiencing it for the first time, hi Parker, say hi.
What's up, Parker?
Experiencing it the first time, there's so much novelty that I think is part of the first experience that you can't, if you ruin that, you'll never get it back. Like if you know, it's spoiling the end of the movie and you're like, cool, you can still watch the whole movie. But if you spoiled the ending and you know the whole time Bruce Willis was a ghost, it's never going to be the fucking same movie as it would have been the time you figured out midway through the movie, shit, he's a ghost. So that logic to me is always that. So I knew nothing about this ride getting on it. They bring you into this world and you're walking through the world of Avatar, and you sit down and you put your stuff in a little, they line you up and they scan you and they're fitting you for an avatar. And you're like, okay, that's cool. So I'm going to be an avatar. That's great. And you sit down on the ride, and I was 100% just talking to my friends, and I sit down on this thing, and the way it transitions from like you're being put in the machine and they're going to connect you with your avatar that's out there and flying, and you're just in this lab that you're going to be connected to it, really was a mind fuck for me. And I went from sitting on this very, very mechanical sitting like horse seat thing that's like you're riding a motorcycle or a horse type thing, to being like, I'm riding a fucking dragon and I'm falling off a cliff.
Right.
And it happens in a split second on the ride, but shocked me so well. And like that type of excitement where you're like, you can put them in an environment where they fully understand the environment they're in, and then make that environment change on them, is part of what makes theme parks and any live experience great, because you can totally get in their head and decide, I'm going to let you think you're doing one thing, and the way we're going to lead you into this thing, you're not going to expect how quickly or the way in which this is going to take effect. And it was was so cool to just be like, I am now writing it. The thing was breathing underneath me, and I was like, this is a hard physical ride I was on. Now I could feel it breathing. It just that level of like detail to make sure you're surprised and delighted by it. That didn't need to go that far. It could have been much less and still been a great ride, but I love that. And that's the type of things I would do if I did a theme park. It's like, cool, how do I make sure people don't know what they're getting into? So when they do it, even if they saw a YouTube video, hopefully they still can have that surprise of like feeling that was not what I expected to feel like.
Now all 5 senses.
And the sensory
like
level of it, yeah. And that's part of what makes theme park rides really great is they are able to... Parker. No. They're able to... Theme park rides are able to take that time where they're developing all the senses and testing it to a level they can make sure every sense you're getting is exactly what they want you to have. And if they're doing it to the top level that you can be done, it could be phenomenal. And that's something that's only done in theme parks where you spend 5 years of development first. Like, we're gonna do a live event. We have 6 months to do it. You're gonna find ways to compromise, or you're gonna have the experience not be as intense as a roller coaster, obviously. Well, I don't even know if I answered your question there, but it got me excited. Totally, I'm motivated.
I think you for sure have like the mind of, I mean, I know this is like a Disney thing, but an Imagineer. Like, I
wish I could have that title. It's like, honestly, Disney, good for you for like copywriting that, because trying to figure out what our company to call ourselves, what we're doing, because like we're not engineers. I'm very technologically savvy, but I'm not an engineer.
Right.
Imagineer is a great title.
It's a great, like, and as
Props
someone
to
who
them.
feels the same way, like, I wouldn't call myself an engineer, but I've done a good amount of engineering-esque work, but it's all for the means of like entertaining someone. And I think you have like the bones of it, because we've talked about games, we've talked about movies, we've talked about parks, and I feel like there's not one word that describes how your brain really works. But I mean, copyright infringement be damned, I think you are definitely an Imagineer for sure. And your lifestyle just proves it, and that's why I'm always interested in what you're doing next, and I can't wait to see what comes out of 8820 from here on out.
To give one last shout out of, like, since I know you're asking a lot of like, what would you recommend to do? My mind is always set on follow your passions. If you want to be creative, be creative. Don't worry about the titles of what you're doing and what you're not doing. I'm a tech director is my title for the last few years, more often than not, which I've learned is not a creative role in how most people see it. Yeah. But I've insisted that's creative, and I've worked with the creative teams in a lot of projects and campaigns and stuff like that in these past few years. And like, I'm seen now as a creative person, as a tech director, and being pigeonholed as tech frustrated me at first, but I was like, I'm making good money and I'm learning things, and I love things I was learning, but I didn't like being pigeonholed into like, just figure out where the power goes and which kind of lighting we're gonna use. I didn't like that at first, but I quickly realized like, oh, but there's so much creativity in this. So if you're passionate about some part of a job, pursue that part until you realize there's another job that uses that part in a totally different way. Because like, I'm just basically planning out a film shoot every time I'm tech directing an event. It's you're still planning where lights go, still planning where the audience is going to be seeing it, but it's not a lens now. It's now where the audience is standing. Yeah. Same tools apply that I love creatively for film apply there, and it's great, and I love that. So I think people often are like, I'm going to work in film, and then when I tell people I've kind of moved away from film the last few years, and I still do it, I still love it, I still want to do more film stuff. Don't be pigeonholed on a title or a job. Focus on what actually excites you. Because if you're not excited by your job, you're not going to be very good at it. Yeah. You're going to be good enough. Like, if you have a natural knack for it, you'll be good at it. But if you're excited by it, you're going to push yourself to be even better at it. And that's often where you actually will succeed. I think most of my career has moved forward, not because I was like, I'm talented at this thing. It's I saw an opportunity to do something. I was like, I think I like that. I'm going to say I can do it. I'm going to work my ass off. I'll be working for billing for 10 hours to do the job. And I'm spending all my personal time researching more about the job and what people do in this world. Did she just unplug me? No, there's just another. No, there's another. Okay.
I was like, oh shit, did she?
No, she just cut tail. That's the dumb one. Just focus on what excites you. Like, I think there's so much overlap between film, video games, live experience. There's so many skills and tools that overlap. Don't feel you need to stay in the box of what you went to school for or what you thought was the title you wanted. If you realize that title doesn't excite you, take the knowledge you learn in that title and find another job that excites you.
Yeah. Which brings us back full circle, which is drop out of school and quit your job.
Quit your job and find a better one you like more.
Find a better one you like more, or just start your own company, I
company.
think is like the path that we're both on. Yeah. I just follow you. If you drop out of college, I drop out of college. If you quit your job, I quit my job. You start your own company. That's, I think, my next goal. So
we'll do it. I mean, I just don't recommend asking me about taxes because I'm not good at that part of it still. Having your own company has a whole lot of side effects that I don't love, but I love being able to just decide what my job is on any given day. Mm-hmm. Like, that's so much better than being like, Nate, can you make this video for us? I'm like, that video sounds terrible, but my job is to produce videos, so I guess I'll make it. Yeah. I'm like, nah, I don't want to do that. Today I'm going to do live events, or I'm going to try to get new clients in this realm. I'm going to focus on learning this new skill, 3D printing this new thing.
Nate, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me.
Nate came from North Hollywood, essentially. So I super appreciate you coming down to San Pedro.
That's why I need to
work on
her.
This little project with me. Thank you, Parker. She's been letting us know. We're like 11 minutes over the hour. I think she started barking at like an hour. She
an hour on the dot. Of course she did.
Hey,
she's a little bit demanding. She's still too young to probably have done this, but you also are too young to be left alone right now.
It's all good. We appreciate Parker. Well, Nate, you're gonna outro us out.
Okay.
You're gonna look at your camera right here.
All right.
Should we do the center one?
Okay.
You're gonna look at your Lumix here.
Yep.
And essentially you're gonna either greet the camera or just do whatever intro you want. My name is, and this has been Dope.
Okay. My name is Nate Weber, and this has been Dope.
Frame Rate Productions.